Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I have to acknowledge that this is a study made by Minna Koivula, but Minna had a pleasant thing. She started her maternity leave, and so I got the honor to make the presentation. Now I got 2 pages. Page up, page. Yes. The most genomic evaluations today are based on multi-step approach. It starts with a traditional animal model or national evaluation. From that we extract the pseudo-observations, daughter yield deviations or de-regressed proofs, and then we use those observations to predict direct genomic values. Alternatively, single-step analysis, we could use the phenotypic records directly, and that would result genomic enhanced breeding values directly, and they would already combine the sources of information optimally. As Christian was talking in the previous talk, more selection decisions are made by genomic information, and therefore the genomic information should be also included into the national evaluations. That's not very easy when the models are complicated. For example, the official genetic evaluation in Nordic cattle is based on the random regression test day model. So that gave our objective. We wanted to test the feasibility of a single-step model in a test day association and use really the phenotypic test day records of the Nordic red dairy cows. And as we wanted to also see the reliabilities, whether we can improve the Nordic genetic evaluations. So the data we used were production test day data and other health test day data. In the production run, we had 3.5 million records with cows, 4.8 million animals in the pedigree, about 100 million records, and that yielded, I think, 146 million equations. The equation numbers are vice versa. In the other health evaluation, we had a little bit more animals, little bit less records, and a little bit less equations. The models are complicated. Both are test day based models. The other health evaluation has a test day for the somatic cell count and clinical mastitis and 3 predictive conformation traits. So there's 9 biological traits. And in the production evaluation, we have altogether 27 biological genetic lactation curves, because 3 countries in this test day model that I'm presenting now were considered as different traits: milk, protein, and fat, and 3 lactations simultaneously. So the single-step model was started by extracting a pedigree for our genotyped animals. We had 5,729 genotyped animals, and based on that we constructed a relationship matrix using a full pedigree, but relationship matrix for the genotyped animals. Then we constructed the G matrix that was based on the Van Raden method 1, but with the improvement that we scaled the whole matrix so that the diagonals of the G matrix and diagonals of the subset A matrix were equal. Then we also combined the polygenic part to the G part with the 20% weight. So this H matrix was only for the genotyped animals, and in the BCG iteration the full pedigree matrix was created by the pedigree file, and this additional H22 inverse file was read into program within each iteration round. We have implemented this in the Mix 99 software package. For the validation, we created two different data sets, full data, like a routine data, where we got the full data EBVs and full data genomic EBVs, and then we made a reduced data run where we reduced 4 years of observations. And from that one we got the EBV reduced, which is basically a parent average. And then of course GEBVs, those were the GEBVs that we have an interest, we wanted to validate. The EBVs and GEBVs I'm talking are combined EBVs where we have taken 305-day milk, protein and fat, and they are averaged over all lactations, and same holds for the somatic cell count and clinical mastitis. And to select the validation pools, we first calculated EDCs from the full data set. Then we deregressed full EBV full bull EBVs for the milk, protein, fat, somatic cell count and clinical mastitis. And then when we had deregressed proofs for the bulls, we divided this set of genotyped bulls to reference and candidate bulls, and candidates were the ones that had no daughters in a reduced run but had more than 20 EDC in the full data. Those were bulls that were born 2003 and 2007. It turned out that there was 748 candidate bulls for the production and 737 for the mastitis. Only difference to the routine test day model was that we didn't implement heterogeneous variance correction. Otherwise, the run was normal test day, normal routine run, and if you are interested in the convergence and computing times, in a production traits, we ran only 1,500 iteration rounds constant, and the convergence of the models was almost same in single trait and routine run, and they both took about 12 hours, 15 minutes difference. Single step took 15 minutes more time with the constant round number of iterations. In the other health traits, we suspected bigger differences in convergence, and therefore we ran them into a relatively strict convergence criteria, and we saw that when routine run took 17 hours, the single step run took 31 hours, and correspondingly about 50% more iteration rounds. This is a descriptive table of the correlations between the estimated breeding values, traditional and genomic. If we look first milk, then the correlation between the pedigree index and the final EBV was 51 in a traditional model, but for the single step it was higher, 0.67. Also interesting was that the pedigree index and the genomic index were correlated 0.8. If we look that same for the clinical mastitis, then the pedigree index was less correlated with the genomic evaluations, but the same pattern on the pedigree index versus the genomic index can be seen. The correlation increases from 0.4 to 0.63. And these are the validation results, very similar to the official interpool test, where the R-score from the model is divided by the reliability of the deregressed proofs. The reliability of the deregressed proofs was high, 0.91 to 0.93, except for the clinical mastitis, which has a low heritability, and the reliability of the candidate pools was only 0.8. The validation reliabilities were quite nice, 0.4, 0.4 and 0.5 for the production traits, but slightly lower, 0.31 and 0.27 in health traits. But again, if we compare them to the parent averages, also the parent average reliabilities were notably higher, lower in a parent average than in the single step. And the B1 that describes the consistency of the variation, that was close to 1, 0.8, 0.9, 0.85, but only 0.9 would be accepted by the test actually, and this shows out that the same inflation in the single-step genomic evaluation remains, but it is still a little bit better than the previous models that we have tested. This is a table that gives a comparison from a Shire model, single-step Shire model, genomic models I mean, and the animal model deregressed proofs from last summer and the current test day animal model single-step. And if you look the reliabilities, starting from the pedigree index 0.25, the increase is constant, 0.31, 0.35, 0.38, and 0.4. We seem to be able to improve the model step by step when we use the data more effectively. Same also holds for the B1 value. It was 0.77 in the first Shire genomic index, and then improves to 0.9 with the single-step phenotypic data evaluation. Other important point for the practical evaluations is that genomic single-step evaluations are consistent with the current evaluations, because we saw that correlation between the current evaluation and single-step evaluation for animals with daughters correlation is 1, so that ranks similarly the animals with daughters, but then when you look the animals that have less daughters, then the transition should be smooth. And at least if we look the genetic trends, we didn't see any difference on the model trends, not very much on the mastitis trends either. This is now for all genotyped animals, for all animals, including genotyped and non-genotyped. So the trend is not affected by including genotypes for small group of the animals. Another thing is what we are interested in is re-ranking using a new model. In first line, we ranked top 100 bulls based on the parent average, and we observed that 39 out of them were in the top 100 based on the EBV. If we do that with the genomic evaluation, we find 49 same bulls in the final ranking, and for interest only that if we rank the top 100 using the EBV full and GEBV full from the full evaluation, then 93 out of 100 are same in the top 100 list. So some re-ranking exists, but GEBV is considerably better than parent average. So my conclusions are that using phenotypic test day records in a single step is feasible. It's relatively easy to implement. You have to first build the relationship matrix for the genotyped animals, then build G-matrix in your way, whatever you want to do, and then you combine them into the age block. GEBVs and EBVs were quite consistent. We obtained higher validation reliabilities with this model than with the sire models, and slightly less inflation of the animal differences, but this inflation still existed. Thank you.